Good morning, everyone, to our panelists, to Ma'am Valero, and to our classmates. So, our title is all about the online learning satisfaction and attitudes of values education with Catecheta students. The researchers, Juan Miguel Cuyos, Eileen Dominguez, Catherine Sarmiento, and me, Sister Angel Puerto, FMA. Now let's move to the background of the study. The unprecedented outrage of the deadly COVID-19 pandemic for more than 2 years brought a sudden freezing effect in the field of education. The students and the teachers are also bound to deal with it without full preparation. Affected by the changes in learning factors, the students' learning also is challenged. It also forms an attitude within the learners that results in the level of their satisfaction in learning. In Indonesia, students are required to do independent studying at home. In addition, in Cebu City, students reported feeling overly stressed and tired while learning virtually. However, in Davao City, students became lazy, worried, and struggled during their online learning, according to Sabala 2020. The significance and beneficiaries of the study. The study is significant since online classes are relevant to all college students. This will help the institutions see the new way of learning in a bigger scheme. The result of the study will be of great benefit to the following: the academic head, the teachers, the parents and guardians, the students, and the researchers. The review of related literature presented in this section are factual concepts of the authorities on significantly related topics. This is to establish a clear framework of the concepts and principles of the variables under study. The factors contributing to students' attitudes. First is the learning material. These educational materials are used to support learning aims for the subjects, according to DepEd 2021. According to Lavan 2020, research showed that excessive homework is associated with high stress levels, physical health problems, and lack of balance in children's lives. Second, the learning environment. According to UCAS 2019, it found that learning environments play a crucial role in student success. Students who study in a positive learning environment have been shown to be more motivated, engaged, and have a bigger overall learning ability. On the other hand, students learning in poor environments, those that are uncomfortable, loud, or full of distraction, will find it far more difficult to absorb information and stay engaged. Then the learning strategy. The teaching strategy. Teaching strategies identify the different available learning methods to enable them to develop rights strategy to deal with the target group identified according to Armstrong 2020. According to Muller 2017, considered how videos including the presentation and the subsequent correction or refutation of a misconceived notion could create student confusion compared to videos which use more traditional didactic presentation methods. And in the cognitive component, a study by Ferd 2019 has indicated how functional changes impair attentional capacities, memory processes, and social cognition abilities in individuals. Cognitive overload is a product of multi-method based learning, and divided attention impacts the quality of comprehension, prioritization, and deep level processing of incoming information according to CAR 2010. Affective component. According to the study, Bonzurek 2018 stated that many students in different levels had feeling of isolation and loneliness when they were required to face a computer screen. Affective learning characterizes the emotional area of learning affected by the beliefs, values, interests, and behaviors of learners, according to Brookhart 2019. The last one, the cognitive or behavioral component. The most commonly used indicators of behavioral engagement work, watching lecture videos, taking quizzes, completing tasks, and posting to forums. According to Jung and Lee 2018, Lee and Baker 2016. And their research the relationship between the learner's behavioral engagement and their performance in the MOOCs and found that the actively engaged learners showed better performance than those who were less engaged. For the theoretical framework, Moore, in his theory of transactional distance, posits that in distance learning scenarios, the separation between the teacher and the students can lead to a communication gaps, psychological space potential, and misunderstanding between the behaviors of the instructors and those of the learners. The research is anchored in the tripartite model of attitudes by Rosenberg and Hovland, which is a latent variable model that is based on the assumption that a person's attitude elicits three models of or components: a person's cognitive, affective, and behavioral responses to an attitude object. The term attitude essentially refers to the affected part of the three components. Each one of these components is very different from the other, and they can build upon one another to form attitudes and therefore affect how students relate to the world. In connection with the study, the realization of online attitude can be ensured by the learner reacting to all stimuli of the electronic environment, activating her or his own thoughts, energy, and desire, reacting to the effect and turning it into behavior. So we have here the conceptual framework, the online learning satisfaction, independent variables. So we have the learning materials, learning environment, the teaching strategies. Then the attitude of values education with catechetic students, the dependent variables. So part of this is the cognitive attitude, affective attitude, and cognitive or behavioral attitude. So we have the research problems. This study is aimed to determine the level of online learning satisfaction of the values education with catechetic students and their attitude towards online learning. Specifically, it sought to answer the following question. First, what is the level of online learning satisfaction of the values education with catechetic students in terms of first, the learning material, second, the learning environment, and third, the teaching strategies. The second question, what is the level of attitudes of the values education with catechetic students in terms of first the cognitive component, second the affective component, and the third the cognitive or behavioral component? The research problem. So, number three, is there a significant relationship between the level of online learning satisfaction of the values education with catechetics and their attitudes in online learning in terms of learning materials, learning environment, teaching strategy, cognitive attitude, affective attitude, cognitive or behavioral attitude? Hypothesis. The null hypothesis of the study will be tested using 0.05 level of difference. Hypothesis 1, there is a significant relationship between the level of online learning satisfaction and the attitudes of values education with catechetics.
Let's move to methodology. The researcher will employ a descriptive correlational method in the study. Descriptive correlational methods are designed to describe variables and to examine relationship between or among variables. The independent variable is online learning satisfaction, and the dependent variable is attitude of values education with catechetic students. The respondents of this study will be the Bachelor of Secondary Education students majoring in values education with catechetic of Catholic College Institution in Region 11, year 2021 to 2022. The sampling method that the researcher will use in gathering the data is the convenience sampling. And overall, 21 total students from first year, second year, and fourth year level who opted fully online, while the rest are in offline mode. The major tool in the data gathering process will be carefully structured survey questionnaire. The statistical tool used to analyze and interpret the data will be the following: mean, person, product, moment, coefficient, correlation, and conduct.
Now, let us move to the results and discussions. So, in Table 1, it presents the level of learning satisfaction in terms of learning materials, learning environment, and teaching strategy. Basically, based on the above data, in the online satisfaction in terms of learning materials, the highest mean is 4.29, which is verbally described as agree. This means that the students are satisfied while the teacher uses creation or productivity tools, which includes playing educational games, using virtual environment for learning, participating in online courses to prepare study assignments, and multimedia products. Meanwhile, the lowest mean is 4.10, which is verbally described as agree. This means that the students enjoy the materials used by the teachers, such as communication and collaboration tools, and that includes the wiki software, social networking sites, online forums, and chat applications for learning. On the other hand, in terms of learning environment, the highest mean is 4.38, which is verbally described as agree. This means that students could focus on learning virtually if there is a safe, welcoming atmosphere, clear expectations, and willingness in students to ask questions, participate, and take risks in online classes. However, the lowest mean is 3.76, which is verbally means agree. This would mean that the students can focus on their online classes if the place is quiet and has a fewer distractions. And lastly, in terms of the teaching strategy, the highest mean is 4.43, which is verbally described as agree. This means that the students are satisfied while the teacher used PowerPoint, lecture notes, reflected personal insights, and mini lectures in online teaching. Meanwhile, the lowest mean is 4.19, which verbally means agree. This means that the students affirm that the instructor utilized a variety of instructional methods, such as receiving guidance by faculty mentors, feedback from student and peer evaluation, sharing of best practices in teaching e-learning classes. Now, let us move to the second table, which presents here the level of attitudes of values education with Catholic students in terms of cognitive, affective, and cognitive or behavioral attitudes. As reflected above, the attitude of values education with Catholic students in terms of cognitive attitude having the highest mean of 4.52 described as strongly agree. This means that careful analysis is authentically beneficial for the students before sharing their thoughts in the class. The right frontal pole and anterior conjugate context, according to Law and Kanai 2016. Meanwhile, the lowest mean is 3.57, which described as agree. The result implied that the students really perceive that online learning setup is easy to adjust. However, in terms of the affective attitudes, The highest mean is 4.62, which is described as strongly agree. That means that the students really feel the advantage of teachers in creating a positive classroom environment and gives motivation to engage in online learning activities. The lowest mean here is 3.43, which described as agree. This implied that the students prefer that they are more interested in online learning than face-to-face class learning since online courses give students full control over their own learning and students were able to work at their own speed. And lastly, in terms of cognitive or behavioral attitudes, the highest mean is 4.29, described as agree. This means that the students are learning new skills in the online class. However, the lowest means is 3.05, which is described as slightly agree. And this implies that it does not really guarantee if the students can sleep during class discussions. Now let us move to Table 3, which presents here the significant relationship on level of online learning satisfaction and attitudes of values education with catechetics. And from the table 3, findings revealed that there is a moderate significant relationship between the level of online learning satisfaction and attitudes of values education with catechetic students having a percent correlation coefficient value of 0.576, which is greater than 0.05 level of significance set in this study. The result implied that the higher the level of online learning satisfaction, the better the attitudes of the students of values education with catechetics.
And now let us proceed to the summary, conclusion, and recommendation. The summary is the study determined the level of online learning satisfaction and attitude of the values education with Catholic students. In terms of the level of online learning satisfaction and attitudes of the values education with catechetics, fall under the level it may be learning materials, learning environment, and teaching strategy, respectively. In terms of the level of attitudes of values education with catechetics, fall under the level it may be cognitive, affective, and cognitive or behavioral attitudes. There is a moderate significant correlation between the level of online learning satisfaction and attitudes of values education with catechetic students. The conclusion: based on the findings of this study, the conclusions are drawn that the level of online learning satisfaction among the values education with catechetic students, verbally described as an agree, may it be learning materials, learning environment, and teaching strategy. The attitudes of values education with catechetics, verbally described as an agree, can be a cognitive, affective, and cognitive or behavioral attitudes, respectively. The moderate significant relationship between the level of online learning satisfaction and attitude of various education and catechetic students implied that higher the level of online learning satisfaction, the better the attitude of the student of various education with catechetics. Recommendation: to the school, there must be a constant monitoring that should be done in terms of well-being of the student and the evaluation of the student learning experiences towards online classes. To the academic head, to ensure the academic excellence of the student in online classes, she can provide some program of a pop-in online visit online to check how it goes. The teachers are also invited to develop their learning materials and strategies toward learning and improve their professional development by being more active toward webinars in line with their career. Simulation. Student, the study recommends that they should continue their good attitude towards online classes to increase their satisfaction towards it. They can improve their learning environment and help themselves improve the way of learning online. To the parents, must also continue to support their children by continuously encouraging them. They can also help give a good ambience to where their children are having their online class. To the future researchers, the study can be reflected using other variables with the intention of expanding the finding of the study.
And that would be all. Thank you for listening.